And Joseph, let me get you in at this point. What does the Christian community feel about this? I mean, yes, there are reforms that are required, there are changes that are required, but at the end of the day, there's also some suspicion, is all of this happening by the BJP to try and foist something, which is an overall concern that many people seem to have.
Yes, much of the feeling among the Christian community is that this is more political than, because the Hindutva Brigade has been using this as a pet project since the RSS has been talking about it repeatedly. It came up during the earlier NDA regime also, where they had to drop it because allies refused to join in and support them on the Uniform Civil Code. The Christian community as a whole has been open to various reforms internally and has been very open to human rights, women issues and things like that.
Okay.
But at the same time, we see this as diametrically opposite to what our faith teaches us. The Christian personal law, the Catholic personal law to be precise, comes from the Bible. It is scripturally based. We have, like for instance, marriage. Marriage is treated not as an agreement. Marriage is treated as a sacrament where God is involved as a third partner in the marriage. In that case, the Bible very clearly, in fact, Jesus Christ clearly says that, what God has united, let no man divide. And there are various issues.
Which is like not to say you don't have divorce in Christian countries either. All right, I mean, let me just come back to you. We've had a long discussion on what personal law board should do and whether there should be reform within the communities. There's a political aspect of this also, which is it's seen as a political agenda of the BJP, and is that one of the reasons why you're really objecting to it?
Coming from NDA at that time when it was in power once, and now coming from the BJP when it was on the manifesto on the last page, suddenly you make it a priority and you want to bring or thrust it on the people of this country just because it is your hidden agenda. I think that gives it a political color. We are definitely not against it, but the point is that it is a very sensitive issue.
Dr. Sami, her point is, we've heard the debate right now as to whether change is required, and I think there's almost seems to be consensus that every religion and every society and every community should make whatever changes are necessary within it. Her question is that the fact that it's coming up from a BJP government couple of months after the government has been sworn in, it makes it look like a political agenda, which therefore is likely to increase the opposition to it.
I don't know about the opposition to it. We are a political party and we have put this before the public, and the public has given us absolute majority. So all this discussion and widespread consultation, why didn't the Congress do it when they were in 10 years in power? So therefore, I would say that time has come for this to be done. Now, the question of the Muslim community, the clerics' objections. I say, when you don't object in Australia, why are you objecting in India? When you don't object to the Sharia,
you can't take other people's examples. I mean, whatever may be happening.
No, then don't say Muslim. Then don't say Muslim. But they are also Muslims. You see,
therefore, comparison between India and other countries.
If in one country the Muslims find no contradiction with the Muslim law or the Muslim theology, how come they find it in this country? And this is widespread. For example, in a civil suit, 2 women witnesses, according to the Muslim law, are equal to 1 man witness. Are we going to accept that?
We don't have that evidence act.
Huh?
In India,
we don't have. We have a Uniform Evidence Act. We have a uniform.
That's a wrong information, Mr. Swami, because in India, we don't have
I know that. That's precisely what I'm saying.
That's
precisely what I'm saying.
What he's saying is not very off the mark, because that was replaced only sometime in 1830 or 32 or 36.
Okay.
So we have accepted all the civil laws.
Can I, Joseph, I want to come back to you. The consultation and the discussion and figuring out whether we need to move towards the Uniform Civil Code is something that we should be doing. But is one of your concerns that it may be foisted on the Christian community as well?
Well, not just the Christian community, it's basically on all minorities, because the personal law deals with the minority communities. Largely have their personal law. We have the canon law. The Catholics are governed by the canon law. The canon law is universally applied. When a person goes to get married under the church or under the authority of the church, it's very clear he knows what he's getting into. He's free to use the secular media or the secular forums or platforms that are available. Same with divorce. He's very, but to expect that the church should grant him divorce is impossible. I mean, that's where it's a basic fundamental issue
so your
of
point
the Bible.
Your point is that if somebody wants to get the protections which are there in a more secular way of doing it, then they have the right to do it. They can go for a civil marriage.
Will they be regarded as Christians then? Will they be regarded as Muslims then? If they went and if two Muslims married on the civil law, will they be regarded as Muslims?
Why not? Who can deny them?
Who can deny
They
them?
will be. What happens?
They can pass as many.
I have a case in the Supreme Court. I can't quote the quotation where a Muslim man married a. Please listen. Where a Muslim man married a Hindu woman and didn't convert her, and they said this is not a recognized marriage.
They say,
but
right to practice
but this is exactly the problem. This is what I am saying, that what they are saying goes totally against the teachings of Islam and Quran.
Okay.
They are self-serving
We
people.
discussed Muslim personal law now in great length. I want to come to some of the other aspects.
Because opposition is coming from there only. This is not very, what you are saying, Vikram, is not very right. Because opposition is coming from there only. No one else is opposing in the manner they are opposing.
Joseph is opposing.
Not in that manner. Not in the, because they have already accepted divorce. Divorce is not part of the Christian law.
Not for Catholics.
Okay. We've had, for example, and Dr. Swami, I'm going to now refer to one of your favorite people. Mani Shankar Iyer, for example, has just said that if there is to be a uniform civil code, then all aspects of Hindu personal law must also change to make a uniform civil code.
Change all
For example, you won't have a Hindu undivided family. Why don't you have other undivided families?
Naturally,
So he says that you can't do cherry picking.
No. He is not saying, absolutely.
You propose it to me, I will be the first one to argue the matter.
Your point is that if the discrimination that is faced is not just in the Muslim community against women, all communities have it, and therefore, if at all we are having a discussion, we should talk about how all personal laws are discriminating against women. Is that what you're saying?
Absolutely. All of them. When it comes to divorce, all women do not have equal rights. When it comes to inheritance, all women do not have equal rights, whether it is Hindu personal law, Muslim personal law, and Christian personal. Recently there was a change in the, after the pressure built by the women's organizations, because a Christian man could obtain a divorce on the basis of adultery. But a woman had to establish an additional charge like desertion or cruelty under the Indian Divorce Act of 1869. So I think these are the archaic way of looking at women's lives. These are discriminatory against women's lives.
Therefore, you should not have reform in the Muslim
laws must
I mean, we are saying uniform civil code. There is no civil code. We are not applying it only for Muslims.
It will apply to everybody.
Yeah, exactly.
So you're sure that all elements of the Hindu society would also be happy with uniform.
All personal laws must go.
Absolutely.
All personal laws must go.
We've just heard Ranjana saying that all personal law, whether it's Muslim, Christian, Hindu, they're all discriminating against women to a large extent. Would you agree with that statement?
I wouldn't agree with that to a large extent, because if you have an issue, a woman's rights issue, then deal with it in a secular manner. Don't blame the personal laws of faiths of different religions for that. I mean, the religions have got nothing to do with gender, or make it, if you have, let's say, male chauvinism, you need to get it done legally and in a secular manner.
But shall I tell you where religion comes into it? And may I quote from Ambedkar, because this is what he said when this discussion was happening at the time the Constitution was framed. He said, "I personally do not understand why religion should be given this vast, expansive jurisdiction so as to cover the whole of life and to prevent the legislature from encroaching upon that field. After all, what are we having this liberty for? We're having this liberty in order to reform our social system, which is so full of inequities, discriminations and other things, which conflict with our fundamental right." So, in a sense, right from that time, that was a debate about that does religion in some ways compromise with other fundamental rights that we should be also looking at, and that's why this discussion has been on.
That's in the Constitution, that reasonable restrictions are permitted on religion.
Right. So I'm saying why Ambedkar went on to say the state should endeavor to secure for the citizens a uniform civil code. Joseph, you want to respond to that?
Yeah, Ambedkar also said that if a uniform civil code is to be considered, this is part of the debates, if this is to be considered, it should be purely voluntary, and it should be only after the fears of the minorities are allayed. So I'm quite sure that Ambedkar had this in mind, that you don't just foist or you don't just impose a uniform civil code because one particular party comes to power with an overwhelming majority. Tomorrow something else happens, you have the whole thing changing once again. I don't think that's what Ambedkar meant when he talked about it.
Okay, fair enough. That's the final point I want to come to with all of you. So, Amiben, at the end of the day, is it your take that yes, there should be discussion on this, yes, we should try and figure out what the inequities are, but no one should impose something, because whether you're imposing Hindi for that matter on the south, or whether you're imposing a uniform civil code on all communities, that's when you really have the opposition.
There should not be any imposition, because the constitution gives fundamental rights and also the directive principles, but most of all it gives dignity to an individual, and that is where if you cannot strike the balance between Article 44 and Article 25, which allows every individual to practice one's religion, and Article 44 tells the state to get some kind of a uniform civil code, where does the balance get struck? So that is where it should not be imposed, but there should be wide consultations.
But can I ask one question? Why is it that in all these years since Shah Banu, the Congress has never made any efforts at all to try and have the discussions on working out a consensus?
If you allow me, can I also ask her a question?
Sure.
As a lawyer, does she feel that in the case of Shah Banu, we tried to have two criminal laws in this country because Section 125 was not part of the civil code, was not part of the civil procedure, it was part of the criminal law. So will she agree that in fact Congress going into the direction of what Constitution had pointed out, it had gone in the reverse direction?
I don't want to retry Shah Banu at this particular point, but I mean, Ben, especially on the previous, on your response to both of them actually.
As far as Shah Banu's case is concerned, it's the landmark judgment. After the judgment came, there was a hue and cry from this, we have a male-dominated society, and there was a cry that the judgment cannot override personal laws, and we are coming back to square one, that we cannot just go on changing the personal laws unless and until the personal laws practiced community comes forward with the reform from within, and that is why the parliament in its wisdom at that time had to bring that law for the Muslim Protection Act. And so that we just can't go on going back to 1980s about the Shah Banu case. We have to move forward. That is why we are having this debate and discussion.
Fine. Fine. I'm going to come to your final comment. Final comment from you. At the end of the day, the issue which I was talking about on the foisting, is that still a concern for you? Or do you think it's time to bite the bullet?
No. I think there is time in history to bite the bullet. Congress has missed that opportunity. UPA government has missed that opportunity. Even at the time of Shah Banu, they missed that opportunity. I think it's important that Indian women, as citizens of this democratic country, must have equal right. And personal laws discriminate against women as far as women's rights are concerned. Equal right in society. And I think this is the time to start an open debate. I will not agree on imposition. But there is no community mechanism by which communities will come forward. And these are the conservative groups which are ruling over people's lives.
Okay.
All fundamentalists, whether Hindu fundamentalists, Muslim, all of them have to just let go and let people debate.
Don't foist it, but have consultation and make sure that change takes place.
Yes.
Your final thoughts are very briefly.
Finally, I would say that if uniform civil code, suppose it says that you can not solemnize nikah, I will be with them in opposing it. If it says don't pay meher to your wife, I will be with them. The law does not go into these details. Law deals with the rights and obligations and duties of the persons which arise as a result of some contract, some legal action. And those, it is understandable in a modern society why one woman belonging to one religion should have less rights in India than a woman belonging to another religion. Why a man belonging to one community should have less rights than a person belonging to another.
Fair enough.
The constitution of the country guarantees freedom of religion. It does not guarantee that under the garb of freedom of religion, we preach and propagate racism. We preach and propagate use of violence, use of force. This is nothing but pure crime.
Okay, fair enough.
And they are going with impunity because they have been patronized by the political establishment. We should stop that.
All right, sir. Final thoughts from you, Joseph. Final thoughts.
I think that there's no way we could override canon law. So in practice or by law, I think we need to find other means like we had in the Protection Act or the Christian Marriage Act and the amendments that followed. I think the existing laws can be either amended or new legislation passed to attend to these issues. I think India is communally a very sensitive country where religion plays a major role in each and every one of our lives. There's no way we should touch, or there's no reason to touch what has not been touched for centuries. Even the British didn't do that. I think we need to make sure that another means or another mechanism is found other than the Uniform Civil Code.
Final comment from you, Kamal Farooq.
Yeah, but I feel that yes, we are not afraid of any discussion. Yes, have a discussion, have the parameters, what actually we want to. People are, you must have read Faizan Mustafa's article in Hindu, in fact, very beautiful article. He said that people are so worried about it, whether the nikah would be performed or the pheras would be performed, whether they would be all the burials or everybody would be burned. All those kind of things are there. Let us have a parameters. They tried earlier also in NDA. They had that kind of arrangement wherein they thought about the whole thing, and then ultimately it has to be shut down. Yeah. They have to work out what actually they want to be. We are open for discussion, but as far as the fundamental rights are concerned, he may be interpreting it 25 in a different manner. My elder brother, Mr. Arif Ahmad Khan, would be entering into any kind of discussion about it. I know very clear about it because I am a signatory to this constitution. My constitution has given me the guarantee of my religion and also freedom to manage my own affairs. Yes, it will continue to be within myself. The reforms will continue to be there.
That's the only question. But you are giving a categorical assurance that reform is something
yes,
which will...
we are. It is a continuous process. As per in accordance with Quran, Hadith, and in accordance with the precedents earlier.
Sira also. Human rights are not subscribed by religion. First of all, I tell you this constant talk about imposition is a pure excuse for not doing anything. Why? Because in our system, imposition is impossible. Parliament passes a law by majority. It has to go to the president. After that, it can be challenged in the Supreme Court. You get many forums to challenge it. Even within Parliament, it cannot go straight to Parliament for a vote. It has to go to standing committees where everybody is represented. So,
yeah, but you could theoretically have a brute force in Parliament, as happened in the Rajiv Gandhi case, and you can do whatever you want.
That time we didn't have standing
committees. So you can impose things.
That time, no, it's impossible to impose in this system. You can get something passed once it comes for a vote, but to reach that stage, you have to go through, and in the end, you can go and challenge it in the Constitution. Constitutionally challenge it in the Supreme Court or any of the high courts. Number two, constantly this Article 25 is quoted. Article 25, there are number of examples where the reasonable restrictions are. Now I give you just my final comment. Biologically, we are 50% men and 50% men and 50% women. Well, little less. If a man marries 4 women, then we are being unfair to somebody else because he is not going to get a wife.
Well, that's not acceptable.
So I think that biologically, it is biologically sensible to say only one man shall have one wife. You may not agree. You can permit your husband to have more wives. I don't mind.
This is not serious. Please, everybody serious. This is a very serious debate.
Okay, I have
a very serious matter.
Yes.
To allow people to marry more than one wife is wrong.
But hang on, I can name you many people belonging to the Hindu community who marry more than one person.
They should be prosecuted.
You know, they don't have to
tell me the names. I will go and prosecute them tomorrow.
It doesn't matter.
No, I don't think we should go in the program. I don't think so.
Before or after?
Please don't put this in the program.
There are members of Parliament.
Why is not acceptable?
Because
you approve
because
of
lot of
marrying
Hindu men, listen
one?
to me, all men, let me tell you that, all men marry a wife who's at home and produces his children and keeps women all over to have relationships.
That is illegal.
No, but they don't take care.
Illegal.
So you can't say that. What is illegal?
It may be your experience.
No.
It may be your experience. It is not my experience. I am also a man. I have no more than one wife.
All right.
It might be your experience.
You are really
Christians are, you are so
Right, Dr. Swami, we are glad to hear that. Now, look, coming
Women
back,
can also
coming
have
back to
four
slightly more
husbands.
serious
That's
issues.
wrong.
It's obvious.
Varta.
Okay, it's all right. I am trying to bring the show to an end. Obviously, one thing which is very clear is that, and I think that is almost a consensus, that foisting something is a very, very bad idea, especially in a country like India. And Dr. Swami says it cannot be done, and I'm relieved to hear that. And I think, especially because it is a BJP government, and it has just come, and there are concerns among a certain section of the minority community that they will be discriminated against or targeted in some way. It would be a terribly bad idea for this government in particular to try and foist anything. But having a debate, always a good idea, and we're welcome to do that right here on The Big Fight. So we will keep this debate going, maybe having another round of this after a few months or so. Thank you all. This is The Big Fight. We'll be back again next week.